Welcome to the village.
Harmony, peace, love, and respect.
Welcome to the village.
Hello, and welcome back to your Marriage Village. This is a podcast where I highlight information to foster healthy marriages and also talk to some very, very interesting guests who themselves share with you some of their personal stories, some as far as their training goals, some information from their education, all things centered around helping you foster healthy and thriving marriages. And today I'm really excited because you've seen Dr. Cheung on. I did an interview with him earlier. So now I get to have him and his wife on, also Dr. Cheung, and they'll introduce themselves to you very shortly. But today we're going to be talking about grace in marriage. So we're doing this 4-part series. It's based on this book. Hope you can see it well, and all my stickers in there tells you how much I love it. But it's called Model for Marriage, and it is written by Jack and Judy Balswick. And in this book, they argue that there are 4 pillars for healthy marriage. And those pillars are covenant, grace, empowerment, and intimacy. So today, the Cheungs are going to be talking about grace in marriage. So why don't you all introduce yourselves to the village?
Wonderful. Thank you for having me back again. And you're bringing back the better half, right? This is my wife. So I'll start again. My name is Dr. Chris Cheung. I'm from Wellspring in Miami. We live in Miami, and we've been here since her graduation, which is back in 2019, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2019. So I'll let you introduce yourself too.
Oh, okay. So also Dr. Cheung. I'm an optometrist, and I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. Moved briefly to Alabama for 4 years for my schooling there before we transplanted back. So
yes,
yeah,
very, very nice. And you are active in practice. Where do you practice, Debbie?
So I practice as an associate with Dr. Arabin and Associates right now. Mm-hmm.
There you go. Just in case you need to contact me. Okay. And Dr. Christopher Cheung is a mental marriage and family therapist. Here I am saying mental health. We are exactly the same credentials. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist with Wellspring Counseling Miami. All right. So again, just remember to like the video, subscribe. But as I always say, share the video with others, because that way others also get the information, they get to empower themselves, and they get to enjoy a healthy marriage. All right. So we're going to jump right into this. So why don't you all tell us first how you met? The good old story about how you met.
You want her version, my version? It doesn't differ too much, but
okay. Any version works.
Yeah, any version works. So we met at church, and at the time we just knew each other more so from an acquaintance perspective. She was in high school, I was just starting college. But I think we met or got a little bit more
like formally
met
in
once
06.
06 once you later part of your high school, right? We shared an interest in anime, and we started talking, but that was purely just, there's no pursuit or anything. It was just getting to know each other well from the same church, and just briefly talking. And it wasn't until 2009, yeah, when we actually started discussing the potential of going out. It was awkward, it was weird, but it happened. We made it happen.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is almost like the two of you were friends, and then it gradually transitioned.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah, because I'm hearing awkward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all fair because you don't want to mess up a friendship, so.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. So then when did you know that you were going to transition and that you were in love? You're going to move from friendship into more of a romantic relationship.
It's interesting. So we mark 2009 as like the year we started dating. But to be honest, it was kind of feeling each other out, trying to figure out if this is going to go anywhere, or should we just stay friends or be platonic. But it just, we had a lot of shared interests. We were both active in the ministries that we were serving in church. He's more so music, me children's ministry. And then, we were college students as well, so we had time, thankfully, because
Yes.
we have very generous parents that helped us with our education. So yeah. So I guess we just got to know each other more through a lot of food. We ate a lot.
We did. So
Ah,
share
so you bonded
the
with food. I love it.
bonding with food, yes.
Yeah.
I love that. You were saying, Christopher?
Yeah, we were bonding. That's our top at the
Mhm.
top food. That's how we connect, and then everything else comes.
Mhm.
I love it. That's an easy way to talk, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Over food. Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. So then when did you decide to get married? When did you go, okay, I think this is something that I can see myself in long term?
Yeah.
So from the beginning, the intention was long term. Now I was probably after we discussed this, I was more
He was
looking
ready.
forward. I was
He was
looking
ready.
forward. I knew it would eventually happen, but I wanted to have some stability first, finish
Mhm.
my education, just also giving her family a sense of confidence that she's going to be taken care of. But the actual steps towards marriage and proposal was I was off in Gainesville, and in my program for about 2 years. She was just going to start her program in Alabama, and there was this would be the first time we were in different states, different locations. And so I think I was ready. I mean, I just wanted her to feel secure as well to get to that step. But I think you had also an additional version that you would want.
Yeah. So in the relationship, I would say I would have potentially had cold feet.
Okay.
As Chris has never been in a relationship, so I was his first. So first time, got got
Right.
the lottery ticket winner there. But for me, I had a previous relationship in high school. What didn't end up very well, so I had really no confidence either in myself or in others to treat me the right way. So I was hesitant. And then just like what Chris was saying, I was about to go to Alabama, a whole nother state, start another program, potentially a long-term career, and I didn't know where that was going to take me. Maybe I might even go further away than Miami, completely across the country.
Yeah.
I had hesitations at first because I was just like, man, we've been doing long distance for a little bit. He was up in Gainesville for his PhD program, and I wasn't entirely sure if I would be the one to break, basically. But then this guy, I went to visit him in Gainesville. He popped down on the knee right before dinner. I was watching a horror movie that night, and just in the hotel room, he plopped on a knee, and it just happened.
Yeah.
And I was so happy to say yes.
Oh, smart move, Christopher. Christopher said, I'm not letting her go anywhere.
Lock me down.
He locked you down. That was smooth. That was really good. All right. So it sounds like all the fears came, let's say most of it, probably not all, but came from Debbie. What made you so ready? Because usually it's the opposite, Christopher. It's like the women are ready and the men are kind of stalling.
That's a good question. Part of that I felt there was God's giving me a sense of peace, and this confirmed. We were dating for 9 years at that point, 7 years. Yeah. And it like she did mention, it was my first romantic relationship, but there was no anxiety about it. We just kept growing, and I felt more ensured as each moment passed by, feeling accepted by her family, getting to know her. She got to see myself and know me in a very deeper way than that most people don't know me to that level, right? And so there was just a confidence and an assurance, and so it wasn't an if but when.
I love that. All right. Now, is marriage everything you thought it would be? Especially for the person who was ready.
You want to start?
Well, I guess like for me, yes and no. Yes, it's because now we're cohabitating or we're living together. And people say, hey, you're gonna have pet peeves. You're gonna realize like this individual do things that will be very different from yourself, and you're gonna have to figure out a way to work it out. And also not it was actually pretty easy too. Because I guess we had so many shared interests and things that we were already had like a good base on. We just had to kind of nitpick, I guess, on the smaller things to kind of figure out like, where are we going to put the utilities, or who's going to mop and who's going to do the cooking in the house. But like in very early when we were engaged, we went through marriage counseling, and some of the harder topics is how to raise kids and finances. And I think those are very crucial to start a relationship, because that can break a family very easily. So I'm more of the realist, I guess, between the two of us, because I need those securities, down, versus he was more like, I guess, like a more emotional security, or I'm not really sure.
I'm there to support and kind of provide. We don't have a very different idea of what our future or a lot of values kind of would look like. So and the marriage itself, I think it was the key and the fundamentals stayed, and it met expectations, so to speak. When you say it was a marriage everything you expect it to be, the refining is a really it's a process and it's a struggle, but we understand that we're in this together and we're going to figure it out. But it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy because it required a lot of self-reflection, but talking out to, and that's a growing point for us.
Communication.
To really know each other beyond just our thoughts, our emotions come into play.
I love that. And it sounds like I'm hearing a lot of security. You keep saying security. It seems like maybe the fact that you felt safe and secure with Debbie as well made it a little easier for you.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mutually, honestly, mutually.
I keep hearing that. All right. So that's a good segue into the part of the crazy marriage in terms of attachment, which everybody knows I'm really big on the attachment piece. But when we talk about acceptance, right, a lot in attachment work, and part of what this book also highlights is the fact that being accepted is critical to developing the kind of intimacy that we need in the marriage. So when we talk about acceptance, we know that children and adults, they both want the same thing. They both want to be accepted just as they are, flaws and all, right? And really just to know that they're loved no matter what. So how does acceptance show up in your marriage? And what does it mean to you to be accepted?
That's a big question, and it's harder to grasp, like, oh, this was a time where I felt accepted, but understanding that I could process even thoughts that I am afraid to share with others, or maybe afraid to admit to myself, being able to bring that out and not feel judged or pushed away or abandoned. I think that was the key thing, that when I talk about my shortcomings, or I didn't think this far, or some of the things that were important for my wife and the securities, right? And being able to say how difficult it is to put it into words or to put it into practice, but not feeling judged, but pushed to grow. So there's an acceptance of where I am at that point, not wanting me to be any different. Just that amount of grace and amount of love what allowed me to, okay, now I need to step it up. I need to become more. And that's not just saying I need to do XYZ because she's asking me to do it, but I want to do it. And I think acceptance played a key role in a lot of our growth, or in my growth.
How about for you, Debbie?
Yeah, so I guess part of the acceptance is like, there are of course things, it would imply that there's something that could possibly be unacceptable, right? Or like uncomfortable. Learning, getting to know him more, in an intimate way, we figured out, where our needs are, and how to, you know, respect it, and how to meet each other's needs in various ways. And in the same route of where he's saying it's, you know, pushing each other to do better. We found that over the last, you know, 6 years we've been married, right? That it's easy to fall back into routine and be comfortable and be complacent and go back into the friendship kind of or honeymoon phase, rather than pushing forward and, like, you know, maturing our relationship and looking into the next chapter. So that has been a season of challenge in the last couple of years for us, especially during quarantine, because he had so much time to talk. But I think it was good too, because just like his shortcomings he's mentioning, it was communication, really, because he's more, you know, internalizing, and I'm of course the externalizer, and I have a wonderful therapist to be able to externalize too. But yeah, so we really worked on our communication, and that in turn kind of helped us, you know, with our acceptance, you know, of each other, and you know, helping us grow. So
yeah, jumping on that point, because as you mentioned, when I don't say the things that are on my mind, I don't know if it's going to be accepted. Well, she doesn't know if that's something that she needs to respect or validate, because I'm not talking about it. And so that I'm robbing her the opportunity of showing me the grace, showing me the love, right?
Yeah. As much as I wish I was a mother here, not a very good mother.
That's right. That's right.
You don't want misunderstandings.
But I do love that you all are stressing that, because I think the thing is, and I like the way you phrase that, or let's say maybe that's a good refrain. But the whole idea of, if I don't tell her, then I'm robbing her of the opportunity. I think sometimes we don't see it that way, that we're giving our spouse the opportunity to meet us where we are, right? And maybe answer some questions that we have. So I think it's really important for you all villagers to hear this, especially if you're the one who is internalizing more, and another person is more expressive. Yeah, all right. So I'm going to read a quote from the Bolswicks, okay, and then we'll talk about it. And they write, as agents of grace, each spouse participates in a reciprocal interaction of talking and listening, giving and receiving, honoring differences and affirming giftedness, forgiving and being forgiven. How are you all living out grace in these areas in your marriage? How do you see it play out?
You have thoughts?
You can take your time and read each area if you need to.
Yeah, it's a day by day, and each day and each season there is a highlight of where we are needing to give and take. You know, sometimes we may feel very comfortable in a certain role, but and that is okay up until a certain point, until your spouse doesn't feel supported, right? So to be able to have that opportunity to say and share, like, I would like you to be more involved, and in that, just asking that question, there is a lot of grace, and not jumping into, oh, you don't do XYZ, you are just being selfish and all, which, you know, there are certain points where you may have thrown that word. I don't think we have ever thrown that word out, but just the fact that we learn to be able to know how to support one another, and to a point where we are able to really pay attention and know when to lift each other up. Because in the beginning, we don't know, or am I supposed to step in? Am I supposed to give space? And so there's this uncertainty about, am I giving or am I not giving? Am I providing the forgiveness? Am I even you know, asking for forgiveness? It's really it needs to play out, and with the, I guess, with a mind that we care and love for each other, to allow us to go into those, because these are very vulnerable discussions, right?
Yeah,
giving and receiving may feel like, oh, we're just, you do this and I do this for our home, but there's also an additional component to, am I giving you the security? Am I giving you the safety that you need? And we don't really talk about these things, but our action shows that. And that's why I say it's harder to pinpoint when we have those moments of discussing these topics, but we live it out and paying attention to it and understanding that there is a real connection and uplifting of each other.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I guess like the way that I would interpret this quote too, in terms of like how we live out grace in each other's lives is just like how Chris said, I'm robbing her of the opportunity if I don't speak up. Like in the same kind of sense, I'm looking at what our strengths and weaknesses are. So where we can fill in those gaps between each other and where like we can delegate like, hey, you go do this because you're better at it and I'll take care of that part of the household. Or like, hey, I stink at reading. I really don't like reading. So I give him all the, financial books and things like that to read and study it. And then we come back and talk about it together. And I learn with him basically like teaching me in that sense. And where, I'm better at power tools and like being a handyman in the house. When the AC's broken, he called me and he's like, honey, the AC's not working. I come rushing home from work to try troubleshoot it. So
Right.
In that sense, it gives us this opportunity to show each other that grace and that let us like support each other in those ways.
Yeah. Very non-traditional kind of marriage, which they talk about a lot in this book as well, right? Because for many people, they're probably going, what? She's doing all of this, but I think it's so beautiful. I think it's really beautiful that people get to hear this because we don't hear this often. I think what happens is, both of us are therapists, so we know this. There are homes where these things are happening, but people shy away from sharing them because society shames women for saying, I come and I fix the AC or I, pull the wire. So I'm really happy that you were able to express that. I think this is going to be huge, especially because especially my audience are mostly African and Caribbean and I have some Asian because my godmother is from the Philippines. So I have some of them who also follow us. So it's really I think in those cultures it's not common, right? They will be doing all of those other things. So
breadwinner, housewife.
There you go. Exactly. So I think it's really good that you're sharing it. But you were saying something. You're trying to say something earlier.
Me? Myself or her?
One of you, I think, were trying to share more.
Okay.
I lost the thought.
Okay, good. Yeah. But so thank you for really highlighting that. I think it's crucial that we do more of that, so that people understand that there's nothing wrong with it. There's really nothing wrong with it. It doesn't make your marriage unhealthy or abnormal, right?
Correct. Yeah, because everyone I feel like is trying to fit into a category nowadays, and I feel like society has been very stereotypical, especially on gender roles. I was reading a book called The Second Shift right now, talking about women in the workforce and how much of us are actually becoming breadwinners and we're having house husbands, and that's okay. But of course society highlights if the woman is taking care of the child, there's no praise for her, but when a man changes a diaper, it's like, wow, trophy, kind of thing. So I'm glad that we're able to be a little bit more non-traditional, and then also show that he is no less of a man for in that sense, because I feel like men get afraid of hurting their ego.
Yes, amen to that. Amen to that. That's correct. No less of a man. So true. So true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so they also argue in this book that acceptance, they say, and forgivingness are the bedrock, right? In terms of a gracing marriage, or as they would say, a gracing love. That those two things are the bedrock. Do you agree with that? And if yes, why? If no, why?
Acceptance and forgiveness.
And forgivingness.
Yeah, they are. I think there are definitely moments where we're human. We tend to gravitate towards our own needs and our own preferences, and there's oftentimes we forget that our spouse, our partner, as their own person, they have their own preferences, and we're learning to navigate that, and that they're not doing certain habits or certain ways of sharing as a means of being angry or disrespectful. We have to take a step back and notice it's a different way, and being able to have that discussion. And if your spouse does something again that feels like, oh, they didn't listen, it's still, there's the component of like, yeah, no, this is just my preference, my own preference. I need to be able to step back and not take this to heart, and be able to come back and do it again until we refine into a process that we both feel respected and that we both feel heard. And so the two dances, right? I accept you for what the person that you are, and I forgive, and I'm able to forgive and ask for forgiveness. And that's the two-way street, to know that that we're giving another chance, another try to get better at making the relationship better.
Yeah. Did you want to add anything, Debbie, or you were?
No, I mean, I 100% agree with Chris, like forgiveness and being able to accept, because we both bring two different things to the table. We're both two different people, and we were raised differently. But at the end of the day, it's like we can use those qualities and use that to build something different, and maybe we'll clash ideas because, of course, two different households, had raised us. But we have to find a way to, put it all together and make something new out of it. Like, get the best things out of both of our, upbringing, and make it into something even better.
That's the beauty of marriage, right? It's almost like creating your own identity outside of where you come from. So, okay. So when you are angry now, right? Somebody does something and you're really mad, or sad or hurt. How do you then extend grace? What does that look like for the chunks?
Extend grace.
You're gonna have trouble answering that, because he doesn't get angry. He is, and like, I feel like I'm so inadequate in that area, because I in my household, growing up, every anger was a part of the way of showing love. So I had an unhealthy way of showing love. So I want to move away from it, and coming back to the point of stability from earlier, this guy provided that for me, something I've never had. So it was really, really nice. So how do we resolve things? I walk away. I try not to talk with emotions anymore, because I realize that when you're emotional, you will say things that you will regret, and you will do things that you did not intend to do. And even though, like, you feel that rush and you feel that pain and you want to hurt that person, the same exact way, it's not good. It's not productive, so with that, going back to grace too, it's like, if we think about, hey, like, we're all sinners, and God's grace in our lives, we made plenty of mistakes, and having that all, forgiven, that's crazy. So looking between us, it's, I think we can always work it out, as long as we're able to be open, honest, communicating, and not holding things back, or like internalizing. So just lay it all out, and work it from there. Everything's a work in progress. Rome wasn't built in a day. That saying. So same thing with that. So
and certainly it starts with the small things, because I think grace giving and receiving grace grew, and the more time we spend with one another. In the beginning, we really are paying attention to even the small things when we're not happy about how our spouse responded, or maybe did XYZ. I do remember a time that I did chose to cook a certain food when I promised her something different. She did kick me out of the apartment, but so that's grace right there.
Right.
She was upset. But even the small things, giving us the opportunity to learn to do better, and that confidence that we will, if we give grace, there is a how do you say this, perhaps an investment in the future that we're gonna become more understanding, that we will change for one another, not a forced change. Like, I need you to be this way, but I want to be this way. I want to become more involved, more
Be
communicative,
better for each other.
and so to a point where frustration, anger, we don't take that to heart, to meaning we don't love one another, we're not trying to hurt each other, but just knowing, all right, let's regroup, let's figure something out. We always have different ways to do that, and so even in those moments, we're gracious in that manner to one another.
Well, and for those of our colleagues from Wellspring who are going to watch this, I guess we get to see that Christopher is the same at home as work, because he is also even keel at work, right? He doesn't get angry. He's very even tempered. So Debbie is telling us that this is just Christopher. So that's good to hear. Yeah, nice. All right. So how do you prevent yourself? Because I think one of the things that I found, and the book talks about it too, is that assumption really can prevent us sometimes from extending grace, right? When we're reading minds. All of a sudden I can see every thought going across your brain, right? So I'm going to tell you what you're thinking and all of those things. How do you prevent that so that you don't hinder grace from taking place within the marriage?
Assumptions. Do you have a thought?
Yeah, I learned not to assume anymore, because I was that person. So I even have it written on my notes here. Mind reading. So, yeah, I mean, because I guess, like, because I was the oldest one in the family, I have two younger siblings or cousins that I grew up with. You think you got it all, you think you think you've seen it all, kind of thing, but you don't. And he was raised a completely different way. So I can't assume that he is when I say something, he would react a certain way, and most of the time he is always very patient, very kind, very understanding, and he listens, versus what I was used to. So assumptions will get you in trouble. There's a saying, probably not very PG to say it here, but yeah, but yeah, so I've learned the hard way. I'd rather sit down and have a conversation, ask him, hey Chris, or hubby, as I say, let's talk about it. Let's tell me what you're thinking. Let me into that mind of yours, so I know what's going on, and then that way I know I'm not putting blame on you, or like thinking you're doing this out of on purpose, or like maybe you just really didn't know. And I want to say nine out of 10 times it's just he didn't know, because we didn't talk about it, or that topic has never crossed our mind, or we thought it was so small it was not important to talk about. But I don't think any topic is too small to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think assumption is very much, even in our work, right? We see a lot of spouse wanting to mind read, because in a way that it's a myth that tells them, like, oh, we know each other so well that we can read each other. But what we've learned, and what I've noticed, is that the assumptions actually typically focuses on the negative. It's like, oh, I assume you're thinking this way about me, and so I'm either going to respond in a certain way. It plays into a very vicious cycle that benefits no one. And so the way to kind of interrupt that is that space we give one another. It's like better to say, like, okay, this is my assumption, let me talk it out and fact check to see if you're thinking that same way. Maybe it's completely different. Maybe it is confirmed, but not to the degree that I think it is in my own head, of how frustrated or upset my wife was. And so when that is put on the table, it's like, oh, okay, this is we can work through this. This is not as bad as I thought. And you got to get that out, because it stays in our mind, the assumptions, and then we act a certain way, and then it repeats a pattern, and now it forms like automatic behaviors. Oh, you're going away, you're screaming. We haven't needed to go there, because now we have that space to talk through it, and even say, okay, I thought you were thinking this. I thought you had meant that. And that's better than I think you meant this. I know you are thinking this. That's why I say this. That creates a different set of problems now, right?
Yeah. It's like, since we're married, nothing should be or not nothing, but like it shouldn't be a secrecy, we shouldn't have to tiptoe around each other and try to, let me figure out, like, let me text someone else and like bring a third person into the relationship there. Sometimes you may do that for friends because they're friends, some things that they will keep from you.
Right.
But in a marriage, I think if we don't have that communication, it breaks down. As simple as that. That's when you start holding secrets, it starts building, and then it gets messy. Yeah.
And I like that because sometimes people are forced to assume because secrets are kept, right? And so now anxiety is high, and in order to reduce anxiety, people start to assume. Seems like a lot of times, at least I see with clients, when they're highly anxious, they create these assumptions because they help to reduce their anxiety. Right?
Or try.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. So is there any room then for criticism in your life? And if there is, how do you prevent it? Because I don't know that it's all bad. I'll let you all answer that. So then how do you navigate that within the marriage?
So how do you prevent criticism from marriage?
Because we're talking about grace, and when we hear grace, most times we think that grace and criticism just don't go together, right? So how do you prevent that?
Yeah, like for me, I've always been a perfectionist because there were high demands on my life from my household growing up. It's all or nothing. If you're not 100%, then you failed. So for me, it's high expectations, and high expectations 100% out of the time will lead to criticism because nothing is ever good enough, or nothing is ever what you wanted it to be. So to prevent that, I really had to stop. I really had to go like, what? It's not good enough. That's not the answer that you would I'm looking for. What I'm saying. It's just we have to realize we are we have different strengths and different weaknesses. So within a marriage, we have to realize we have to give grace on each other and realize there's some things that he cannot do that I may be able to do better, or some things that we neither of us know how to do, or he doesn't know how to do well, or I don't know how to do well, that we can both learn how to do together now. Like, let's make it a project. And like we found in the last year that like he actually really enjoys doing things with me, and I didn't know that. I've always tried to do it and take it all on myself and try to do it on my own, but he really enjoys doing things with me, even grocery shopping.
Actually, that really did.
So don't be a perfectionist. Don't have not that you don't have expectations, but don't make it impossible.
So it seems that what I'm hearing is the fact that you chose to abandon. Of course, it's a journey and a process, but to abandon criticism, it now almost open you up to new ways of being in your marriage, and also having new experiences in your marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. I think throughout our times, we built, also taking the time to build the positive sentiments, the ability to see each other, and giving each other benefits of a doubt. At least for me, I don't receive them as criticism or as something to put me down, but receive it as a way of an invitation to become better or try different things. And it's not always been that way, but I think we've come to a point where if there's certain aspects that we like to invite one another to pay attention to do better at, I'm more able to hear that as, this is a challenge. We are able to overcome this. Let's put some time, let's put some effort into this. Let's shift away from some old unhealthy habits and go towards, making things happen that will make both happy or grow. We feel like we're growing together. So yeah, really just the what we are hearing right now is not criticism, even though it may present it as that way, but that's because we've taken so much time to build the fundamentals and the
Yes,
communication.
yes, yes. And you make a good point, because the truth is, when we have, using Gardner's language, with the sentiment, positive sentiment override, when we have a lot of that in the marriage, that even if it's critical, it doesn't sound like it, because we know that the person at the end of the day, they mean well, right? So so we hear it in a whole different way, versus if we are not really giving each other all of those positive statements and affirmations throughout the marriage, and when it says something, it becomes a big deal. So yeah. So continuing with the Gardner language, which they also use a lot of Gardner language in here. So continuing with that, let's talk about repairing, because in every marriage we have fights, right? One of the things I spend a lot of time doing is helping my couples understand that it's okay to fight, right? Because people really panic when they hear the word fight in marriage.
Yeah.
No, we're not supposed to fight. So how do you repair after a fight?
Well, I guess we're a little bit inexperienced with that question, because we don't fight a lot, thankfully. But one thing my grandma, in her infinite wisdom, she said, never go to bed angry, so always try to resolve the issue before you go back to the same bed. So for us, I guess, first thing and foremost, I'm sorry, apologize. And then I think also for the assumptions part of it, if assumptions, usually that's what gets us in trouble. We let them know, hey, like, this is what I thought, such and such. That's why I reacted such and such, just to kind of talk it out and think it out, like, how come we got to this situation? And then once we get to that point, then he'll share the same thing. And then we'll go, oh, that was really silly. And then we're all smiling. So yeah, I don't know if it's like extremely helpful, because it seems a little too like ABCs, like too easy something, but yeah.
I would tell people we don't have like the perfect marriage, or never need to come to us and looking for that. We do fight in a different, maybe not in the way that people think, that screaming, yelling, shouting,
throwing things.
But there are breaks sometimes, and we need to come back. And I think one of the repair attempts we've learned is to really make that effort to come back in whatever way possible, to come back to each other, whether it's in our space, whether it's just taking some time to self-soothe first and then come back, right? Take the common language. I know for myself that I would need that space first and then come back, and that's okay. She's allowing me that space. We never actually talk about the structure, how this works, but we have this dynamic that we that at the end of the day we will come back. We will fight for the relationship in an aspect, and not let a disagreement or a fight become making each other see each other as the enemy in that sense.
And we don't let it fester. We don't shelf it and go like, no, we'll just put it in a little matchbook, collect it over time, and then let it kind of break loose. We try to resolve it, immediately.
Yeah, I love that. All right. So what's your goal for maintaining a gracing marriage or graceful marriage? What is the goal, if there's any?
Goal to maintaining a graceful marriage. I think we recognize that we each have areas that we're going to come up short, that we're not going to be able to fulfill or not respond in the way that our spouse would like us to for one another to respond. And those are the opportunities now we see as relationship building, rather than as a break, or rather than as a what do you call it, just I'm unloved, like all those negative beliefs that surfaces, right? But we're really taking time to speak each other's love language, or even learning about each other's apology language, in a sense. So we're doing small things and taking that as we're never going to be perfect, and that's not what we're seeking, but we can become really excellent in serving one another, in helping each other grow, and ultimately helping this marriage to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah, for I guess for me is like also bringing back my upbringing and my I guess form of grace or love or what have you that I was brought up with. I'm trying to move away from that and build a healthier version of it, so that way when we start building a family, our kids can see what is a good not like a guide or like a but at least a good example, so that way they know that, hey, like this is there's different ways to solve problems without having to include all that pain, include all that hurt, or like go to that extreme, like there's better ways, healthier ways, and hopefully not hurting other people out within our families as well, alongside. So just overall to be better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, to also go back to our past, kind of understanding that and how our future would want to look like. And so that's probably a goal, how we can grow the grace and extend it to the next generation.
Yes. Yes. So we have a lot of newlyweds, actually, quite recently, who just joined the village.
Awesome.
So yes, so I'm really excited about that, and a lot of them were added by their pastors, which makes me really happy because yeah. So what advice would you give them, just based on your experience? We know no marriage is perfect, but the truth is you all are trying to do some things right, and of course there's proof because you've been married for, they say 7 years the age, right? You're 7 years, yeah. You're 7 years in, and you seem to be doing well. So all that age is out the door. Exactly. So you have a thing or two to offer. So what advice would you give them regarding grace?
Oh, do you want me to start?
Yeah, you can.
Absolutely. I think we covered many of that, but the foundation is important. Just remember why you chose to say yes to one another, and build that early on. There's a lot of distractions that can come into the first year of marriage, the first even 2-3 years of marriage, whether you're starting a career or whether children are coming along. These are natural transitions into a couple's life, but also can take away the attention from each other, and then not spending enough time learning about each other's dreams, learn about each other's love language, even, or like how we can be growing together, because their assumptions can seep in when routine hits, right? And when we're so used to certain ways of doing things. And the second advice, of course, take every fight opportunity as a way of saying, this is a growing point for us. This is a point for us to have a deeper conversation, and be willing to go deeper for yourself as well. Because I think a lot of what I notice is in our arguments, it starts from, I felt this way because, this is how it happened in my family of origin. And that, I don't want this to happen in this marriage. And then, I'm just assuming things now, and not going deeper prevents the repair from the present in the relationship itself.
It's like trying not to, I guess, bring the baggage from, how our upbringing or how our household, showed grace or managed forgiveness and things like that, just to figure out a better way. We always talked about like putting our family together, and our values and our morals, and how we're going to upbring our children is let's take all the good from our families. Like there's always going to be bad, even with there's always going to be bad habits, bad things, but let's just emphasize on the good and pass those on, or be examples of it. So
love that. Bring all the good. I love it.
Trying to be cup half full, not half empty.
That's right. Yes, so true. So true. All right, well, is there anything that you feel like I haven't asked as relates to grace, or how you really exercise grace in your marriage that you feel will be helpful for the village that you want to share?
I guess for me, it's just communication. I think communication is key. Within a marriage, within even friendships, like I see a lot of misunderstandings because people just don't talk and they want to hear it from a third person and they go around, each other's backs. Don't do that. That's just going to turn into a mess 100% when you have too many ears, too many mouths, too many telephones. We all know that game telephone. So don't let it get distorted. Try and work it out between the two of you. And if you can't, then try and find someone who's I guess able to help you guide these conversations. So that way you can figure out that communication, because not everyone's just lucky that married to a therapist that is able to guide a conversation.
True.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
Very true.
Yeah.
I think my wife already mentioned so many of the things, same thoughts we share about this how to extend grace, but I think be learning how to have hard and difficult conversations and not see them as something to avoid, but something to anticipate and welcome and be fully in there. And humbleness and humility comes into play. Be willing to set aside what we think is right to how can we make this where we're both right, where we're both winning.
Well, village, there you have it. I want to say thank you again to Dr. Christopher Cheung and Dr. Debbie Cheung for being here with us today, talking about grace within the marriage. I feel like they have given us so much that we can each take something to apply to our marriage, and maybe even share with your children or your grandchildren who are getting married. So again, I just want to thank you all for being here. I pray that God will bless you in the village. God will bless your marriage. God will give you the courage to be able to have the conversations that are necessary to foster marriages that are going to thrive. But even beyond that, that your marriage will represent what we call the kingdom family here on earth, so that God's name will be lifted up at the end of the day. All right. So remember again to share the video with others, and we'll see you here next time. Same place on the village. All right. Take care.
Yes.